Good evening, everyone. In the previous session of Management of Financial Services, I was explaining about the procedural aspect of right issue and private placement. In this session, I am going to explain the procedure of IPO and offer for sale. I will simply explain what are the various steps under these two methods of floating new issue. Okay, so let's begin the session. So the first point or the first procedural aspect which I am going to explain today is the steps involved in offer for sale. So as you all can see on the screen, there are 5 steps involved in the process of offer for sale. So again, I am going to repeat about offer for sale. It simply means that the company, instead of issuing directly to the public the shares, the new shares, the company can issue these shares to any merchant banker or sponsor. Now these merchant banker and sponsor, they have to enter into an agreement with the company, and they need to follow all the rules and regulations created by the SEBI for the offer for sale. So they have to follow those rules and regulations, and they have to enter into a proper agreement with the company, and after purchasing all the shares or the specified number of shares from the company, they can resell the shares to the general public. Okay, and it will be in between that process they have to follow all the terms and conditions and the rules and regulations of SEBI. Okay, so the first step in the process of offer for sale is called agreement. So first of all, the company which is issuing or going for offer for sale, and the merchant banker or the sponsor who is supposed to purchase all those shares, they have to enter into an agreement. Now this agreement will state all the terms and conditions of offer for sale. What would be the total number of shares to be purchased by the merchant banker, at what price the shares will be sold to them, and regarding the offer for sale, each and every term and condition will be mentioned in the agreement, and both the parties need to follow each and every term and condition. Okay, the second point is called registration. So in the second step, the company needs to register under SEBI, or register into a stock exchange or any stock exchange in which area the company is going to sell the shares. The agreement which is created by the company, the agreement which is created between the company and the merchant banker, needs to be registered in the specified stock exchange. For example, a company wants to issue shares in Bhubaneswar and or in Odisha only, so they need to submit the agreement to the Bhubaneswar Stock Exchange. So like that, in many states there are, in each and every state there are specific stock exchanges, and they can register this agreement depending upon in what area they want to enter into the agreement with the sponsor or the merchant banker. Okay, so that is the second step of offer for sale. The third one is called default. There are chances that the merchant banker or the sponsor means there are chances of default. The company, the merchant banker may not be able to pay the amount of money for the purchase of shares. Okay, and there are other ways also in which default can take place, means the sponsor can commit default in any case. So in any type of default committed by the sponsor or the merchant banker, this need to be properly mentioned or registered in the arbitration committee. Now this arbitration committee is set by SEBI to take actions regarding default of the sponsor, default committed by the sponsor. So the company needs to mention or needs to inform the arbitration committee regarding the default, any kind of default committed by the sponsor. Okay, the next point is called offloading. Offloading simply means that the merchant banker or the sponsor can also resell the shares to the general public, but there are certain terms and conditions for the offloading purpose. First of all, here in this point it says that So it actually says that the promoter or the sponsor can offload his position, but after post issue, they have to keep around 20% of the total issue, not less than 20%. They have to keep with themselves, not less than 20% of the total issue for a 3-year time period. Now, this 3-year time period is the lock-in period. They have to keep after the issue around 20% of the shares issued to the sponsor or the merchant banker, and after that it is up to them whether they want to keep those shares with themselves or they want to issue or resell the shares to the general public. Okay, the next one is market maker. Market maker, this point actually means that the sponsor and or the merchant banker needs to create market for the shares of the company. That is the one of the most important duties of the merchant banker. They have to create a market for the companies, market for the shares of the company which they have purchased, so that after some years the public will be interested in purchasing the shares of that company. Okay, so within a time period of 18 months, they have to create such situation. They have to play the role of the market maker, and the merchant banker or the sponsor can needs to bring another market maker. So within the 18 months time period, they have to create market for the shares of the company. Okay, now these two market makers must hold around 5% of the total equity shares which are issued through offer for sale. So these are the terms and conditions which both the parties need to follow in the process of offer for sale. So these are the general steps. This is the actual procedure of offer for sale. Okay, the next topic which I am going to explain is the procedure aspect of IPO, or you can call it also as public issue. So the first point, so see, public issue means when the company decides to issue new shares in the primary market, and these new shares are directly offered to the public. So anybody can purchase any number of shares by making proper payment, and they can become owner of those shares. So this offer is generally made directly to the public. That's why it is called initial public offering or public issue. Okay, so this public offering also has many steps. So the first point is called draft prospectus. So prospectus is that document which contains each and every detail regarding the issue, regarding the total number of shares, regarding the company's name, the names of the director. I have already mentioned the different elements needed to be mentioned in the prospectus in the previous session. In the session in which I explained about IPO, what are the features of IPO, advantages and disadvantages. In that session only I have explained what are the different points, what are the different elements needed to be disclosed in the prospectus. Now this prospectus need to be submitted to the SEBI, and they are going to analyze this prospectus before allowing the company to make public offering. So when a company makes an offer worth more than 50 lakh, means the total number of shares which they want to issue to the directly to the public, and the total amount of those shares is more than 50 lakh, they have to make a draft prospectus for the observation of the SEBI. And the SEBI will go through the detail about the prospectus. They will understand what is the total amount of shares, what is the price. They will go through each and every detail of the prospectus, and then they are going to send a observation letter regarding the permission given to the company for the IPO. Now the company needs to conduct the IPO within 3 months of receiving the observation letter from the SEBI. So this is the first point, or we can say the first step of IPO. The second is called fulfillment of entry norms. There are certain terms and conditions which are needed to be followed in order to make IPO. So these entry norms are like parameters, and these parameters needed to be fulfilled by each and every company in order to in order to get access to the primary market. The SEBI has included many parameters, and these parameters are needed to be followed strictly by the company which wants to go for IPO. Okay, so there are certain terms and conditions which the company needs to follow. So the first point here says that the company should have the net tangible assets of at least 3 crore since the last 3 years. Okay, so as the first point have mentioned that the company needs to have a net tangible assets. Tangible means which can be seen and touched, and the total net tangible asset must be worth of rupees 3 crore for last 3 full years. So they must have 3 crores of net tangible assets since last 3 years. If they do not fulfill this condition, they won't be allowed to uh, go for IPO. Okay, the second point says that it should have distributable profits in at least 3 years. Means they must have distributable profit in the last 3 years. Means this distributable profit means they must have some amount of profit which is distributed in form of dividend and interest. So this distributable profit must be there in the company since last year. Means since last year they must be earning more amount of profit and they must contribute to the payment of dividend. Okay, the third point here says that it should possess net worth of at least rupees 1 crore in 3 years. Means they must have total net worth of rupees 1 crore. The total net worth of the company must be 1 crore in the last 3 years. It also says that if it has to change its name, means if the company wants to change the name, then at least 50% of the revenue for the proceedings of one last year should come from a new activity. Means they must introduce any new kind of activity within the business, so that the profit, 50% of the profit must come from the new activity. If they wish to change the name of the company, they have to follow this procedure, or they have to fulfill this condition. The next point says that the issue size should not exceed 5 times the pre-issue of net worth. Means the issue size should not be more than 5 times of the total net worth. And if it happens, then IPO won't be allowed for such companies. So these are certain norms which each and every company needs to follow if they wish to go for IPO. These norms are basically kept so that people won't take advantage of the SEBI, or people won't take advantage of the public. But there are some genuine companies who do not who are not able to fulfill those entry norms. And for those companies, the SEBI has created different categories of entry norms, which is called entry norm 2 and entry norm 3. So I am going to explain what are the conditions under entry norm 2 and entry norm 3. Okay, so the entry norm 2 follows that if the issue is through book building route, at least 50% of the issue should be allotted to qualified institutional buyers. Okay, so here book building first of all means that if the company wants to want to issue through book building process, it simply means that the company needs to have an underwriter who will determine the price of the issue, price of the initial public offering. If this happens, then 50% of the total share need to be offered to qualified institutional buyers. Means there are many institutions who provide this facility to the companies. So they need to be offered at least 50% of the total issue. Okay, so if the company goes for book building process, they need to issue at least 50% of the shares to the qualified institutional buyers. Okay, the next point here says that the minimum post-issue face value capital shall be rupees 10 crore, or there shall be compulsory market making for at least 2 years. Means the minimum post-issue face value, means after issue of the shares, the face value of the capital needs to be at least rupees 10 crore. And there shall be a compulsory market making for at least 2 years. Means for 2 years, these underwriters are going to provide this facility to the company, that they are supposed to create market for the shares which are issued by the company for next 2 years. Now in offer for sale, you must have heard which I said that the market making time period is 18 months. But here in this norm, it is mentioned that for next 2 years, the middleman or the sponsors are going to create market for the shares. Okay. So these are the entry norms for the companies. Now SEBI has also created another category of entry norm. If those companies, there are some companies, because the previous entry norm 2 is meant for private companies, public companies, some of the banks, and if they are not able to fulfill entry norm 2, they need to fulfill entry norm 3. So there are certain conditions under entry norm 3 also. So first of all, the company must have at least 100 prospective allotters. Means they must have 1000 prospective allotters. These are the people who are interested in purchasing the share of the company. So they must have around 1000 prospective allotters. Now it is also mentioned that the project needs to be appraised and participated by financial institutions and scheduled commercial banks. So if financial institutions and scheduled commercial banks do not appraise these projects up to 15%, then the project may not be given sanction, or project may not be allowed to go for initial public offering. And the last one says the same thing, that the minimum post issue value of capital must be at least 10 crore, and there is compulsory market making for the next 2 years. So this condition is very similar to the entry norm 2. So these are the conditions, entry norms, which the company must follow in order to go for IPO. Okay. So after fulfilling these entry norms, the third step here is appointment of underwriter. So underwriters are basically appointed so that if some of the shares are left unissued, the underwriters will purchase those shares, or they will help in the sales of the shares. So they get a commission around 2.5%, and these underwriters take the liability on themselves, because if the shares are not issued or if our shares are not purchased by the general public, then they are supposed to keep it with themselves. And for that purpose, they are also getting some kind of commission to resell the shares to the general public. The next point is appointment of bankers. So bankers are appointed, and basically the bankers of the company, they are given the charge regarding the collection of money and all that. So bankers are also needed to be appointed by the company. The next one is initiating allotment process. So once the company is getting, once the company starts getting application for the issue of shares, they need to start the allotment procedure. They need to allot shares to the public, or shares with respect to the applications which they have received. So whenever the subscription has reached to a minimum level, because it may be oversubscription, under subscription, but the allotment procedure will start because there is a minimum level of subscription, and if the applications are over the minimum level of subscription, then only the allotment process starts. Then comes brokers of the issue. Now the company also appoints some recognized brokers of the stock exchange for the marketing purpose of the issue, and they also get a commission of 1.5%. So brokers are appointed, and they are going to market the shares for the public, and it will also help in increasing the sales of the shares. The next point here says that filing the documents. Okay. So here it means that the draft prospectus which was prepared, it will the draft prospectus along with all the detailed documents, agreements between the company and brokers, underwriters, bankers, all these documents will be sent to the registrar of the office. So these documents will be filed to the registrar of office. Also, that is called filing of documents. With prospectus, each and every agreement which the company has entered into with the underwriter, broker, banker, or any other party, these documents are needed to be filed in the registrar of the company. Okay. The next point is printing of prospectus and application forms. So the details of the prospectus will go for printing, and application forms will also be printed so that the general public can send those applications for allotment purpose. Okay. So in this step, what happens? All the prospectus details of the prospectus and application forms will be sent to the underwriters, brokers, and other parties for printing of prospectus and application forms. Okay. The next one is listing the issue. Now the company is supposed to list the issue in the stock exchange. They are going to send all the necessary documents to the stock exchange for listing purpose, and the initial fees they have to pay is around 7,500 that needs to be paid to the stock exchange for listing purpose. And once the IPO is listed in the stock exchange, they can publish this in the newspaper so that the general public will be aware about the issue, the dates on which the issue will start, and what are the dates of sending application forms, allotment, and each and every detail will be mentioned in the newspaper or any other media. So that is the 10th step in the process of IPO, the publication in newspaper. All the details regarding the IPO will be published in regional and national level newspaper, depending upon in which area the company wants to issue their shares. If it is a regional company and they are listed only in regional stock exchange, then they will publish these information in the regional newspaper. Okay. The next one is allotment of share. So after receiving applications, the shares needed to be allotted to the people who have applied. They are going to see whether it is an over subscription or under subscription. Based on that, based on the application received by the company, shares will be allotted in accordance to that. Okay. The next comes underwriter's liability. So if the issue is undersubscribed, then the liability falls on the underwriter. The underwriter needs to purchase all the shares which are not issued or for which applications has not been received by the company. So the liability is taken by the underwriter. And the last point or the last step is called optional listing. Like I said, the company needs to be listed in regional stock exchange, and that is extremely compulsory for the company. And if they want to get registered in other stock exchange, that is completely optional. So if, for example, if the company wants to issue shares in Orissa, they have to list in Bhubaneswar stock exchange, regional stock exchange. Listing in other stock exchange other than Bhubaneswar stock exchange, that is completely optional. Okay. So these are the important steps which are needed to be followed by every company who wish to go for IPO, initial public offering. So these are the two aspects, procedural aspects of offer for sale and public issue. In the next session, I am going to explain the SEBI guidelines regarding different methods of floating new issue. Okay, so that's it for today. We will meet in the next session. Thank you.